in the middle of the soul, have a foundation in there. So I asked him, what did, and what was the thing that acknowledge them as the lost tribe of Manaseh? He told me that, and the Israel embassy, in India, they checked and that they are very satisfied with, all the information and that they, collect, almost over 3,000.
Yes, so even the state of, yes, so
that is the last information I had from Burma.
So yes, even the state of Israel acknowledges that you guys are descendants of lost tribes. Okay, did you know that?
The only thing is that why didn't we have synagogue? That is my problem.
Yeah. Well, I can explain why that is. Yeah. Well, that's why the lost, hence underscore lost. Okay. Lost.
And then also back in 2012, I got a 2 years from United States, which is like to master course. And the tour guide also had used. We had a very good conversation too, and he told me that, and if you are really to try Israel, you must be hated, he told me that. You must be persecuted. That seems to me is that quite true, but it is, it is for us, persecution and hardship are always there, since we were born. I can't figure out, or identify, why maybe because we've been living in dictatorship for many years. It's very hard to say whether persecution is because of Israel or because of the dictatorship of the government. It's very difficult to say that. It's really interesting.
So yes, the state of Israel also acknowledges the top rabbinate also. That's why they were open doing conversions. But now they're recanting, saying, because they've had problems with your people when it comes to conversions. Because now they're finding out a lot of them, after they convert, the second generation is like becoming, a lot of them are just being secular. They're not staying true to Judaism. So that's why they stop the immigrations. They're not continuing that right now. And they say there's something about DNA, there's questions about DNA, whatever. Well, they say, because of DNA, we're not convinced they're descendants of Israel. Well, as I mentioned to you, you don't just, by the way, yes, that's their point, DNA testing and genealogy trees, those are the ones. But just that alone does not determine whether you guys are or not. You can say, just because their DNA doesn't match, they're not. But all this other information, all these other points, you have to look at everything, the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of this criteria. I was talking about how your forefathers frequently use the term Manaseh. Well, they say Manaseh or Manaseh, which is roughly the same, which is the lower variant form.
The elders, when we, like in ancient time, when we do something in the jungle or somebody in the jungle, whatever we do, we kill, pig or we kill the cow or whatever. This might say that Manaseh Krishna, which means that Manaseh, the god of Manaseh, something like that.
Oh, really? Manaseh,
Manaseh.
Manaseh.
Yeah. It is very puzzle and controversial for us too. Where we get it in that word.
Yeah, our forefathers, from B to the third and the fourth generation, were still practicing those kind of like, what do you say, spirit worshiping. And the time when they worship the spirit, they did not know who that spirit is, but they just called it Persian. And God, of course, transliterated to English. They spell, they pray that about, we say the God of Manaseh. That's one thing. I know that my grandpa told me too.
Really?
And the other things that mentioned, maybe our forefathers practice. I remember I saw them when I was a kid. We were at the time of our forefathers practicing sacrificial animals. That's when we learned that no other tribes practice that kind of worship. That might be one of the character or maybe criteria that I can categorize in your.
Like an antiquated tradition.
Yeah,
Antiquated
it
tradition.
may be one of the main tradition I can say that, but one other thing is what will be being a Manaseh or not? What we're going to be or what is our future? What will be our future or what will be our purpose of
That's the reason why I'm here. It's not so much to convince you that you're Manaseh. That's not really mine. That's only just a stepping stone. There's much greater purpose for why I'm here. That's just only a small point of the matter. So yeah, to take it next level, I plan on doing. I just want to kind of clear the air and tell you why I'm convinced that you are Manaseh. So that you too can be convinced that you're Manaseh. Because that way I can help you share with you what our plan is to help your people from an Israelite perspective. But wrapping up a few more points here. So you realize also you guys did at the council village, you had a house, a village house, right? Where all the village people came together and they celebrated once a year. The priest would sacrifice an animal and he would atone for the people once a year. He would atone for the people, the wrongs, the sins, any mistakes or accidents, some things like this.
This is the season.
This
Now is the season.
Oh, really? So you know the season?
Yeah. I mean, right now the season we used to practice maybe a little earlier. It's mostly after harvest time. And here we carry over the tradition, so we call it Quado.
You call it what?
Quado is a hosting spirit, and what do you call expel out all the bad things. Eliminating, destroying, expelling out all the bad things and all the bad spirits, and hosting the good spirit.
Well,
This is the exact time, and we here in Zomi community, we recognize as one of the festivals we should practice, we should celebrate here. So the coming Saturday is our dedicated days for the tradition.
wow, so even the same time almost. Okay, so that is
Exactly. It matches with Sukkot.
so cool. Well, I believe it's actually Yom Kippur.
It may be
Yeah, because it was one day in the year.
Yeah, we in the tradition we had too. Before that celebration came, the priest or the priest outside that must kill all the sacrificial animal first. It might be related to that Day of Atonement.
Yes.
It might.
That was done once a year. That was done once a year.
That once a
Yes.
yeah, so once
Okay. Um, okay. Good. And did you also know that the priest, when he sung certain songs, I'm not for sure exactly when and where and how, or when he would do this, but Leon Coop in Tadine, he told me that they actually said they talked about his grandfather told him about crossing the Red Sea. They crossed the Red Sea, but there is no Red Sea in Burma. So you know what Red Sea did they cross? A red body of water. And that's actually, I've heard that on multiple occasions, also with measles. Measles, we'll also hear that. They have songs that talk about crossing the Red Sea. So, and then one last point is, actually, there's a little parable I like to share, but it's kind of long. It takes like half an hour, so I'm not going to share the parable, but maybe I can just share just briefly what this is about. So, there is a people in the world called the people of the book. They're known as the Jews. The Jews are known as the people of the book. What book? Well, the Torah book. The Torah. The Torah scroll. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. All right. Why are they known as people of the book? Because they live by this book. At least the religious ones do. And they're in it all the time. Reading it all the time. Every single day. Break open the scroll, read it. Memorize it. Learn it. Obey it. Immerse themselves in in all the words that was written in the Torah and live by those commandments. Okay. That's why they're known as people of the book. Okay. Did you know that there's people in this world called the people of the lost book? People of the lost book. Yes. So there are actually many places in the world around where people have a story where their forefathers once carried a scroll, and somehow the scroll that their forefathers had, when they had the scroll, they were actually literate and very knowledgeable. They understand many things about life and death and Elohim, God, and the afterlife, and about how to live life presently in the world. They understand many things about this. But then once they lost this scroll, they became stupid or ignorant, illiterate. So a number of cultures that share the same story. And of course, it varies in many certain ways. On the Shikini people, primarily the Shikini people, they share this story. Also, let's see what else. There's a number of other people actually in I believe Kazakhstan. I think they also have a similar story. But the Shikini people say many the Zomis and the Shin and the Migos said that your forefathers once had a scroll, and then a dog came along and he ate the scroll. Please raise your hand if you heard this story. Has anybody heard this story? Yeah, heard this story. Yeah, okay. So all of you heard this story. Okay. All right. Did you know that your brother tribes also have the same story? And we believe you know what the scroll is, and why it was lost, and how it became lost. We believe you guys lost this scroll. The dog that ate it was. You know who the dog was? Please tell me. You know?
No. We just say a dog eat it.
Yeah, okay. We're convinced this is the Chinese king. The dog was a Chinese king. And actually, right after that, I think that time you guys migrated north into Qinghong, China. And next you started you became cave dwellers. You started living in caves. Then you got out of the caves, I think because of persecution, actually. Living in cave for some
You
time.
say Shinlong? Shinlong?
Yes, yes. We know that, we know where that is in China.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, I even, in there a place in northeast of India called Shillong.
Oh, that's, I think Shillong, that is different.
They have it, yeah.
It's
It's
the
not
same.
far. They
have the concept. Oh, it's not the town of Shillong.
Yeah, it's
No.
another term. They have the story, yeah.
Okay. So after you guys lost the scroll, you became cave lovers. Because
It's like that. It's in my back.
And so then after that, after some time, you came out of the cave and you migrated into Burma. And you went up, even possibly up north into Mongolia, then migrated down south into Burma. P.S. Hawking has a certain belief about that. You guys migrated really far up into Mongolia. They went down south over several generations. But we also believe you guys helped build the Great Wall of China. Your forefathers did. And so that fits in the story somewhere. And that, yeah, I forget the name of this Chinese king. I forget his name, but we think we know who he is. I cannot remember it. I keep forgetting his name. There's actually a book written in Zomi. It's a red book that when I was at the ZYA, when we met, this guy, this book was all information, all kinds of information in your language. Why Zomis are descendants of Manaseh. It talks about this in great detail. And so I would like for you guys to please read this. It's very important for your people. I think, especially you being leaders, I think you should at least be aware of this. Nonetheless, at least be aware of this. It's very important. So I'll try to connect you guys with that book. Maybe you might see some copies. In fact, I actually may have a copy of the book. I just need to. I'll go forward to improve it. So let's move on. Yeah. Now, the reason why I believe that you guys ended up where you did was because if you are Manaseh, and by the way, I only scratched the surface. Okay, I only told you just a fraction. Okay, what the information that you got is. Okay, so maybe hopefully you're about 2% convinced. Hopefully. But the reason why Manaseh, if you are descendants of Manaseh, which I believe you are, why you ended up in Burma was because your forefathers, long ago, here's what I believe, is that one sort of the tribe of Manaseh living probably on the east side of the Jordan, because there's a half tribe of Manaseh living on the east side of Jordan. And then there's the other half living in the land of Canaan. And when the Syrian conquest in the 7th century BCE, or 8th century BCE, when Assyria came down and conquered northern Israel, they conquered those territories, they took those Israelites and scattered them throughout their empire, throughout the Assyrian Empire. They put them in areas of Tabor, and along the Silk Route, Tabor, the Tabor River, and the other territories. It actually says it in Kings. Exactly. I think it's 2 Kings chapter 18. Let me go there real quick. I think that's where it is. Let me just double check. In the 3 years they took it, even in the 6th year Hezekiah, and in the 9th year Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. The king of Assyria to carry away Israel unto Assyria and put them in Hala, and in Habor, on the river of Gozan, and the cities of the Medes, because they obeyed not. Here's why. Are you ready? Here's the reason why. And from there, you guys migrated elsewhere. Here's the reason why. This is what I believe. Okay? Because they obeyed not the voice of Yahuwah, Yahweh, their Elohim, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded, and would not hear nor do them. Moses even warned Israel several times in Deuteronomy, if you do not obey these commandments, if you do not hearken to the voice of Yahweh Almighty, you will, in the latter days, you will be judged, and you will be scattered from this land. You'll be removed from this land. You'll be scattered to the four winds of heaven. And so, in the scattering, Israel became lost. Lost to who they were, lost to their culture, lost to their language, lost to their Elohim, their God. So they became like the nations around them, eating anything they wanted to, worshiping anything, all kinds of spirits, demons, whatever. They became lost in every way, almost every way. And so, but fortunately or blessingly, you guys had certain traditions that you preserved. This is Zomi tribe, the Cheeky people, preserved certain traditions. That's very special. Not the other tribes, a lot of the other tribes, when this happened, they were scattered. They lost the lost tribes in the west, my forefathers, we lost everything. Literally everything. Not even one tradition. All we have is just we can trace our migration routes. We get enough historical evidence to trace our migration routes to Europe and on into America. But besides that, we lost everything. Nothing. So you guys are fortunate enough, blessing, God bless you to where there's many things you preserve. So that's very special. And that's why we're able to say, okay, here's why we believe you guys are descendants of Manaseh. So now, having said that, if you guys are descendants of Manaseh, which I believe you are, now, of course, we have limited time. I would love to share more with why I believe you are. But I'm just requesting, please, I'm humbly requesting, because I don't have time, that I'll give you material, you look for yourselves. You will do some more further investigation, because this is very important, how this relates to helping your people. It's very important. How we work together. Because the first thing is, you guys have to be convinced that you're Manaseh. If you're not convinced that you're Manaseh, you probably won't care what I'm going to tell you. It's going to be like some far off dream. You're not going to really care. So when I was with the organizations in Burma, they said, okay, you first need to convince us that we're Manaseh. That's what they said. And we did. We talked about it. Several hours in certain meetings, we talked about it. We had enough time to really do it. But I don't have enough time with you guys. That's why I'm requesting that you please go over more extra material.
What tribe are you?
Ephraim.
Ephraim.
Yes.
What about you?
Ever? Undecided?
I'm not sure. Joseph or Manaseh?
That's out of the west?
Either Joseph or three princes.
Joseph is a true son. Joseph is not counted as a tribe.
Actually, certain places Joseph is counted. That's why there's actually 14 tribes. Yeah. That's by technicality, it's actually hidden. It's hidden in the scriptures. Very rarely do you see it, but Joseph, when Jacob adopted Ephraim and Manaseh, he adopted his own sons, and he said to Joseph, and he was talking to Joseph, he said, Joseph, your sons that we get out of you are yours, but they should be named after their brothers in their inheritance. So that means that Joseph can be his own tribe, because the line of Joseph still continued apart from Jacob, even after he adopted Ephraim and Manaseh. That's why by technicality you see it's only alluded to in the beginning and the end, so it's alluded to in Genesis 48 and also in Revelation 7.
I am just unsure
Oh,
which of Ephraim or Manaseh.
okay. Or Joseph. Or you say Joseph.
Well,
So
Ephraim or
always-
Manaseh.
Okay.
Because they're supposed to be named with the other tribes.
So when we speak Joseph, Joseph means that Manaseh or Ephraim.
Yeah.
Because Joseph is the father, and then Manaseh and Ephraim are the son.
Well, yes,
Son, yeah.
yes, but then again, there's also a slight distinction. There can be, I'm not saying there is all the time, but sometimes there's a slight distinction. That Joseph is identified separately, like in Revelation chapter 7. Joseph is called the tribe. People say, oh, that's a crime. Well, he says Joseph. He didn't say it's a crime. Sometimes he says it's a crime, not Joseph. So there can be a distinction. I just want to point that out. Okay. Now, when I was there in Burma, and I was talking with these two organizations, which you guys are related to, they said what the elders said, they said that, okay, we are convinced that we're Manaseh. Now, we have to live like Manaseh. That's what your elders told me. Your elders said this. Okay? They said, that, okay, if we are truly Manaseh, then we have to live as Manaseh. If this is really who we are. This is our true identity. Does that make sense to you? If you are Manaseh, you should live like Manaseh. If you are Manaseh, should you live like Manaseh? Does that make sense? Yes or no? Yes?
Yeah. So we spend them, I was born in Egypt, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying.
Yeah, our forefathers born in Egypt. So when we in Canaan was famine, and then we went to Egypt. Right? We were born. Yeah.
Well, no, I say you guys. No, I see your exile began. Your exile began in the 8th century BCE. Not in the Exodus, not in the Exodus, but in the 8th century BCE. That's when you began your exile out to becoming lost and eventually becoming found again.
In those days, we were together, right?
Yes.
Back in Egypt.
About 2,800 years ago. No, after Egypt.
Yeah.
After Egypt.
After Egypt crossing the Red Sea.
Right.
And in the desert 40 years.
Right.
And Joseph and Caleb in the 11th.
Joshua.
And Caleb. Moses was, Moses was left behind. And then, so he became, those days were very hard to treat Philistines.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's big problems for us. Those Philistines.
God raised up the King David, right?
Yeah.
And then he had to kill the Goliath. So I said, that's where the kingdom came up.
Or the United Kingdom is united with tribes. They were united with tribes.
It's all one.
So what does it mean now? What does it mean now? What the elders said, your elders said in Burma, was from to you. They were saying, Zomi, Manaseh. She needs to live as Manaseh. So now this is where I come in to try and help plan how to train Zomi to becoming, to learning the past of their ancient forefathers, but also how we can help Zomi people in recognition, international recognition, and also eventually a form of autonomy. And so they may have shared with you what I shared with them, some things. Yeah? So what I believe, I'm just going to give it to you in a nutshell. I have many, many detailed plans I could share with you. I'm just going to kind of give you a basic overview. Okay? When I was there in Colombia, they told me that, they asked me, can you help us to maybe somehow acquire a state in Burma, have a state in Burma with your connections in Israel and say, could you help us do the state in Burma? I said, that's not my interest, I'm sorry. I think you are shooting for less than ideal. In other words, you're really doing something that's not really, you can have better goals for yourself than trying to get a state in Burma. I think that's not the solution. Not the solution to try to get a state in Burma. Number one, they're thinking, oh, because you recognize, well, just to be honest, most, Americans don't even know where Burma is. I'm sorry to say. A lot of Americans, when they grow up, even me, growing up, I didn't know where India was. We know where India. Burma, we never heard of it. And so we definitely didn't hear about your people. Now, I did because I was learning about tribes, I studied their tribes. Okay? But most people, they don't care, they haven't learned it. So even if you guys did get recognition in Burma, it's not like it's gonna change much. Even economically, I was trying to tell them, so what, the Chin people got autonomy, they got a state in Chin State. They're still in the same boat economically, still in the same boat. Yeah, they didn't come out ahead economically. Maybe a few of the guys that are up, sitting in their office, but that doesn't help your people as a whole. I don't believe it's gonna help all the Zomi people if you guys get a state in Burma. Sorry, it's just not gonna. So I said, let me share with you what I believe, how you guys can do better than that. What I believe is also in accordance to the will of our Heavenly Father. I don't believe it's Yah's will, our Heavenly Father's will, for you guys to get a state in Burma. Sorry, I don't believe it's His will. But what I do believe His will is He wants to establish His kingdom on the earth. And He wants His tribes, He wants His people united. Okay. Now, your theological preconceived ideas, sorry, but please set them aside momentarily. Okay? And please do this, and set your theology, all your theology you learn, please set it aside. To share with you some ideas on how we can move forward economically and naturally speaking, okay? And then if you want to, I can also talk to you on a theological basis, which I did with them also. And they also understood where I was coming from. But I just want to talk on a natural level, okay? Right now, just in a nutshell. So, what I believe is, I would like to see, because I believe that Zomis are citizens and that I would like to see certain Zomis trained with us Messianic Hebrews. There's many former military operatives in our ranks, and we also are very astute in the ways of Israel. Okay, so we would like to train a small section of Zomis, and I was talking with them about this, in these, in reconnaissance, in military operations, in the ways, ancient ways of Israel. And the idea goes something like this. There are two places in the world that are autonomous zones. They are free of any and all government intervention. What I say is that there's no government that owns the land. Two places in the world. One is in Antarctica. The other place is in Africa. It's called Bir Tawil. Its Arabic term means deep well. It's about 2,060 kilometers square place, situated sandwiched between Egypt and Sudan. South Egypt, North Sudan, in between them. If you Google it, you can find it. I'd like to show you maps. I've got all kinds of maps I can show you about the reserves, the resources, and the water table. I can show you. Right now, I'm just trying to give you an overview on this plan. So what we would like to do is, we're planning, I'm working with other Hebrews in the USA about this. And we're planning on assuming a territory, taking up residence in Bir Tawil, and literally setting up a biblical Israelite government, which is a theocracy, where we make Yeshua our king. Literally in every way. We believe this. You don't have to wait 100 years from now in order for the dog hits the fan and everything comes unglued and chaos. We don't have to wait. Yeshua gave us the keys, we believe, to do it now. So we believe that we do it now. And that we can make Yeshua our king and set up a government which is composed of a hierarchy, a series of courts of law. No one man, just councils, government councils. The Supreme Court, which essentially is the primary go-to court of law. That's the highest. And so they're all subject one to another. And then all the other courts below them are subject to the higher courts. That's kind of how it works. Jethro laid it out in Exodus chapter 18. And it's also laid out in other places in the scriptures. So we believe this is very, very possible. And that Bir Tawil, it's a region within the Sahara Desert. It is desert. Nevertheless, it's known to rain about once every 3 years or something. So it does get some water. There's some water there. So there are a few hurdles, but we believe this could be a territory whereby the Zo tribes, when I say Zo tribes, I mean Chikim tribes, Shem, Kukim, Zo, even Kashin, if we're to be trained properly, we could assume that territory and we could create a land for your people, Zo Israel, where we have Zomi, Kuki, Shin residing by each other, not under any pagan government in this world. And Yeshua would be your king, literally in every way. I believe this is very, very much feasible within our reach. Really, the first stumbling block for people when I tell them about this, it's either the theology or else it's their own disbelief. He says, "Oh, it's impossible. We can't do that." Well, you've already said because you believe it's impossible, you pretty much eliminated any possibility for something like this to happen. So might as well just stop right here and not before. See, everything starts with belief. If you believe it is possible, even the slightest bit of possibility, then what that means is it is possible. It can happen. But if you say no, it can't, then everybody just shuts it down. And everybody just doesn't do anything. It ends up. So I've dealt with those kind of people all over the place. Yeah. So Yeshua said, all things are possible to those who do what? Who believe. So it starts with belief. It starts with belief. And something this grandiose would change the world, truly it would. But we have to at least believe it is possible. At least a seed of belief, of feasibility, it is possible. And then we can work from there to see, practically speaking, okay, how could we do this? How could we work together to make this happen? So because I'm convinced that Zomi is descendants of Manaseh, I want to work with the people. We want to help to train them in the ways of Israel, in the ways of the ancient Hebrews, even a small group, maybe 50, something like this. I was telling them in Colonial, some young guys or something, get them all together and go through a training session, maybe one long training session, or something, and prepare for our launch. Now, here's the thing is, to launch an operation like this, would be in the tens of millions of dollars. You think also, well, that's impossible too. No, that's not tens of millions of dollars. But it's not impossible. Because how many Zomis are there in the world? Something like maybe 7 lakhs, 700,000, something. Is that right? Okay. So if even a fraction of those, even maybe 200,000, were to agree with this idea, get on board with this idea, okay. Yes, we can see that we are of Israel. Yes, we want to be out from underneath Burma and out from these pagan governments. Out from wicked American government, is more wicked than Burma in certain ways. Yes, Burmese government is wicked. American government is more wicked in certain ways. More wicked. So, we all want to be out. We all want to make Yeshua our king. We want him to be our savior, literally our reigning king on the earth. Did he not say, "Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name, the kingdom come, will be done on earth"? So he wants his kingdom to come on earth. I'm sorry, try not to go to theology, but I just want to mention he wants his kingdom to come on earth, and this is his desire. And so to make him king on the earth would fulfill his desire. It would. He would love this. And you can pray about it, study about it. I can show you more scriptures going on. But what I'm saying is, this is the idea. This is the plan. And yes, something like this operation would cost them tens of millions of dollars. But even a fraction of the Zomi, just the Zomi, I'm not including the chin or the cookies, which I'm also working with PS Halkip on also. But even just the Zomi, even a fraction of the Zomi started saving up, within 3, 4, maybe 5 years' time, we could reach that amount. It's possible. It's possible. So, having said that, I know you all have a lot of reservations about what I just told you. It seems very, very different, I'm sure.
First time hearing it, so.
Yes. But so now I'm going to just leave it there and say, what are your thoughts?
No, yeah. Very new. Trying to establish the kingdom of Messiah in.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to hear what you're asking.
Okay. It seems like the way I understand, trying to establish the kingdom of Messiah by ourselves, right? By initiating in our own effort on the earth. I'm not sure that will be the way the Messiah asks us to do that.
Okay.
Physically and in material and looking for a place where we can establish a kingdom, become kind of a secular or political system now. I am not sure. I'm not really convinced that we are mandated or we are instructed to do that.
Okay.
That's what my instinct right now.
Right. So then what I have to do then is I have to show you theologically why I believe this is true. If you provide me just a few minutes, I could give you an overview theologically why I believe this is true. Okay, so who is Yeshua coming back for? Yeshua, Jesus, who is he coming back for?
To save us.
To save us, right? He's coming back for his bride, right?
Yes.
He wants to take his bride.
Yeah.
But he's not coming back for a broken, divided, stain-filled bride that's full of spot and wrinkles. He's coming back for a united, pure, holy bride without spot and without stain, without wrinkle. But look around you. She's not there. Nowhere near close. This is one of the things Christianity, I believe, Christian theology, Christian eschatology, I believe is wrong. They think that Yeshua could return at any moment. Well, no. The bride, he's coming back for a prepared bride. She is nowhere near ready. Nowhere near ready. You know, look around. You know, we're all divided. We're broken. The bride is broken and divided. It's it's fractured and splintered and hurting and wounds. So when that bride has formed some semblance of unity and organization, at least even with a remnant, to demonstrate to our King that we are holy, pure, true, and united, working together. And he says, oh, okay, well then let's bring in the rest of the crew. And then, you know, maybe may kick off the end of time, spark end time revolution, to where then he say, okay, now the bride has become ready after some time. Okay. But even if you disagree theologically, naturally speaking, this makes sense. from a natural standpoint? Does it not? I'm just talking just basic politics and economics. If we were to establish Zomi people as a separate group in Bir Tawil and build a land over there, you could also come out after a couple of years, you could help your people in Burma, help your people in USA, help your people in Australia, in Malaysia, and other places. Economically speaking, it is a win-win situation. Politically speaking, it is also naturally political. I'm not even talking about religious, theological. Naturally, politically speaking, it is also a win-win situation. You'll be out from pagan governments. You'll be out from oppressors oppressing you, from wicked systems, from trying to, choose the lesser of the two evils. You don't have to do that anymore. Why choose the lesser of the two evils when you could choose the greatest good of the universe? When you have the choice. If you have the choice to choose the greatest good of the entire universe, but yet if you want to stay in choosing the two lesser of the two evils, why stay doing that? You have the choice. You can come out. Just simply come out. And you can enthrone Yeshua as our king. We can have him literally as our savior and king. Now he may not be on the earth with us, like physically. That's up to him if he wants to do that. But at least as a theocratic government, you guys would be out from underneath the oppressive rulership of the pagan nations, of the heathens. So from a natural political standpoint, I hope it makes sense, just from naturally. Theologically, okay, it is our Heavenly Father. He didn't set up a democracy. Well, okay, that rules out America. He didn't set up a militocracy. Okay, that rules out Burma. Or the parliament like what India has. He didn't do that. So he set up a theocratic government, a judicial, patriarchal theocracy, where he has councils of judges, men judges who rule his people. Not one man rulership, not a presidency, not a monarchy. He didn't start even with a monarchy. Or some, other type of political format. He started with a theocracy. He started Israel with a theocracy. And that's his ideal. That's what he wants. So, that's Torah. Now, since that time, King David came, but of course, that wasn't our Heavenly Father's will, ideal will. It was within his permissible will. He allowed Israel to do it. But he says, Samuel, he says, well, Israel, what are you doing? Why are you choosing yourself a king? You've rejected Elohim and choosing yourself a king. Remember that? It's in 1 Samuel 8, verse 12. So now, voting for a president is actually, according to the Bible, it's even more unscriptural than Israel choosing for themselves a king. The reason why is because a president is not anointed by a prophet, and he's voted into office. A king is anointed by a prophet, and he's appointed by a prophet that Yah chooses. Okay, that's the difference. So even that is not Yah's ideal will, but it's much more his ideal will than a presidency, especially a militocracy. So his ideal pinnacle, cumulative, ultimate will is a theocracy, like what he established with Moses and the judges. So, yes, many of us may not be fully competent to be able to do that right now. But that's not the point. The point is that if we are willing, if we have willing hearts, he can move us in that right direction to be able to do it. We don't have to be there right now, with having everything in order and everything. But as long as we see where we need to go, if we have a vision and we're willing, we have open hearts, open minds to be able to move in that direction, and he can move us in that direction. He can prepare us, he can train us properly. So, I don't know if that helps theologically speaking, but the kingdom of heaven is supposed to be on the earth. Yeshua is coming back for a spotless bride. The bride is not anywhere near spotless right now. If we were to do this, we could at least help a remnant of his people to achieve that unity and that type of perfection of the bride that he wants, that he desires. And so this may seem still like so bogus to you, to many of you. It doesn't seem practical when I don't know what you're thinking, but to me, this is very practical, very pertinent to our times in which we live. And I believe it's necessary that we do this, and move forward with this. Any other thoughts or ideas, guys, we have? Welcome.
Well, they still need to study it.
Well, those organizations there, they're ready.
Mhm.
They're ready to send men in and to start training.
That's
At least next year sometime. Because they wanted to hear you guys' take on this matter. And because Manaseh should not work alone. If Manaseh is really Manaseh needs to work with his elder brother Ephraim, or his younger brother Ephraim, and his other brothers, Zebulun, Asher, Dan, Naphtali, Issachar, Asher, Judah, Benjamin, Levi. All the brothers must work together, and we know scripturally this will happen. They will work together. They will become united. It will happen. I don't believe in, I'm an activist. I believe if you want something done right, we got to do it. And so I see that this should be done. If you do have any reserves or hesitancies, please, I would invite you to write them down and list points of objection you have to what I presented. A list and say, okay, well, here's why we can't do that. Or here's why we don't see this fits with us or something. I don't know whatever you think. But you can send them to me an email. I do best with email. But rather than going to the detailed presentation on the operation itself, we call it Operation Ephraim Live, since he's taking over Bir Tamil, reversing the desertification, dealing with Sudan, Egypt, all the diplomacies and everything. That will come later after you guys are convinced that you're Manaseh and after you see that this is something we should do. So,
Very neat. Still have some reservations to consider it. Will that be a good purpose of life here? As you know, the Zomis are in a process or in a transition to kind of like being in secular or maybe in the political system. We are just starting up. Well, as a tribal or ethnic or nationalities in a country yet. We are almost there yet, but to be one of the main tribes of Israelites, of course, Manaseh, and establish a country or kind of like territory out there. These will be a little bit of me, honestly. Will that be the command or the instructions or let's borrow the Bible word.
Well, it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible to support American politics either.
Yeah.
Or to support Burmese politics. It's not in the Bible.
Yeah, it might be, of course, the gospel, or maybe it's a message, or will that be a command, or it will be.
So if you have incentive to support American government, which is not righteous government, if you have incentive to support American government, why would you not want to have incentive to support a government that is based off the Bible? Why?
Yeah, that's the beginning point where I have to come out. For example, I find out I'm a German, or I'm an Indian, I'm in Manaseh, I live in the U.S., or I live in Burma. It doesn't matter that much for my livelihood, that my the future, in my belief, before Messiah is coming back to the earth. I believe he rather, in supernatural way, he would rather establish his kingdom by himself, rather than we establish before he came, before he come.
Okay, but hang on, but he's not just coming, he's not actually, that's another thing. I don't believe he's coming back to establish the kingdom. He's coming back to receive it. That's in one of his parables you can see there. I can show you in Luke chapter 19. Okay, it's talking about the imminency of the kingdom of heaven. The disciples asked, they were going to Jerusalem, when is the kingdom coming? And he talked about the parable of the nobleman. He said the nobleman went to a far country to receive a kingdom because the citizens in his own country hated him. The citizens were the Jews. He had to go into exile, which represented the exile of the lost tribes of Israel. He had to go to the other Israelite brother tribes and receive, not to establish, to receive a kingdom from them. That's in Luke chapter 19.
You're saying that to receive a kingdom that has been established before you come. Is that it?
Yes. It's actually the kingdom of heaven that he has given us the keys to set up. In fact, let me read this to you. Acts chapter 3, verse 21 is also a very key scripture here. Acts chapter 3, verse 21. It says, and he shall, and see, talking about Elohim, God, he shall send Yeshua, Messiah, which before was preached unto you, verse 21, Acts 3:21, whom the heavens must receive until the times of the restitution of all things, the times of the restoration of all things, which Elohim, God, has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. So essentially what he's saying here is heavens are containing Yeshua, they're holding him until all things are finished being restored on the earth. Once that process is finished on the earth, the process of restoring all things, then the heavens will open up and he'll come back. That's what this says. It's exactly what this says. Acts chapter 3, verse 21. There's also the concept about a growing kingdom. See, if you believe that Yeshua is coming back to give us everybody the kingdom, you believe in some abrupt change into the kingdom age. Well, virtually all of Yeshua's parables, and even the prophet Daniel, Daniel chapter 2, and even the prophets do not speak of an abrupt change. They talk about a slow, gradual change. This is also another issue out of everything to spin with you, theologically speaking, but they talk about a slow, gradual change. That's why Yeshua, Matthew chapter 13, he related it to wheat and tares growing up alongside of each other. This is like Babylon and Zion. They grew up alongside of each other, growing up. He likened it to a mustard seed that he planted in the ground. And that mustard seed, it grew and it got bigger and bigger. It was relating to the kingdom of heaven. The mustard seed was like, and the mustard tree was like the kingdom of heaven. In Daniel chapter 2, he talks about the stone cut out of the mountain without hands. The plant that was put on the earth and it's decimated the image of Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian system. It was destroyed. And then it was planted on the earth and it grew and it grew and it grew until it became a mountain. And that mountain grew and grew and grew until it filled the whole earth. So I give you many scriptures, and I give you many more that show this concept of a growing kingdom, starting out small and getting bigger, bigger. I mentioned to you that Bir Tawil could be a place of where a remnant could come. A remnant could come and start something. So, sir, even if you disagreed with me theologically, even if you disagree, naturally speaking, this makes sense to help your people. This makes sense to help your people in Burma who are oppressed and who do want freedom from. So you guys are sitting pretty nice here in America, but and they also have it. They're okay in Burma, but they're also very oppressed. I mean, you know how it is. So, but politically and economically, this would be advantageous for you.
You know me, by profession, I'm an engineer.
Yes.
We are very calculated.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means it is very hard to come out that calculation as a solution is that I can say, oh, the project, say, let me say project, the project will help our people back in Burma. Well, there is very little chance to come out a good solution for me right now.
So if we had a form of refuge place for them to come to,
Mhm.
and if they're willing to be trained properly, because this type of place requires special training,
Yeah.
then we would have a place where we could bring them to. They would want to come. We would let them come.
Yeah, in that approach, like, well, come over here. We're gonna establish a country, a kingdom that is sure the Messiah will receive us one day. Rather than saying that, oh, we have a country, a nation here, then you can resettle or you can settle here, you can take refuge here. It might be, for me, acceptable approach rather than establishing
Okay,
a
okay.
kingdom. Since we are oppressed, or of course, in the Zomi, in the context of oppressed status,
So you think I should pretty much leave the theology out of it?
it might be. It might.
At least when talking with your people.
Yeah, if I am the one to campaign or to kind of like promote these, I would approach that way. Come on, people, you have a good refugee camp up here. Why don't you come here?
Okay. So
Like,
from a
for
natural
example,
standpoint.
yeah, for
Okay.
example, right now in thousands of us in Malaysia,
Yes.
India, taking refuge right now. We didn't know what is Malaysia before. We didn't know who are they, and we did not know what their religion is. But we just risked our life to settle, to look for a better life, for a daily life, not because of to establish a kingdom or to establish that the kingdom that Messiah will receive.
Okay.
But in kind of like so to improve our civilization or
Yes.
our daily life, lots of people may be thinking that way, that, oh, if there is a good place like the US, we call it that is the third country, the third country. Oh, there's another third country. Now, I came from, for example, I came from Burma. I tried to work at Singapore, then I moved to the US. There's nowhere else. If there is very hardship situation come to my family right now, there's nowhere else I can look for refuge, right?
Mhm.
If there is one more like that, maybe that will be a good approach or a good ideology.
Okay, okay. So, all right, so pretty much just from a more natural standpoint, which okay, I understand, I understand.
But now, as frankly speaking, I have not even heard the plays you're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't either until recently, until this year. I didn't know.
so it will be much more risk than going to find a good refuge crossing the border from Burma to Thailand to Malaysia and settle out there.
Well, so I guess that's why, I think if you want to reduce it simply to a refuge camp, which by the way, we actually have plans.
Yeah, in another word, it will be a refuge camp, but in another terms, I would say looking for a good pasture or looking for life, future,
A better future.
a better future, then it will be better interested for the zone.
Okay, okay. I hear you, I hear you. Regarding this place, as I mentioned, there's a few obstacles. There's a few obstacles, but none of them are unsurmountable. They are overcomable obstacles. For example, like the desert and getting water and what. So I've done research about this and got a lot of plans on how to do this. Even the cost factor, what it would take roughly. But if enough people are involved, if enough people saw the vision, then this is very attainable. We can do it. For us, it's something much more. It's something much more than just good economy. Which, by the way, we do also have the initial base camp design. I can show you the designs. We have working with Chinese tent manufacturing companies to do domes in the desert, which are very good to deflect the heat and very good for the winds and dust storms and whatnot. I've been working with a meso engineer for many, many months, even through COVID-19. Been working with her, and so we've accomplished a lot on the designs of this basic camp. That on how, if we were to set up initial operations in such a region, how would we practically do this? Well, I have protocols on not just functionality, not just the designs, but I have protocols on the functionality. How would we function this in Canton? How would it work? And to be very, very efficient, to be very organized. So I believe much better economically than your situation in Burma, or the people's situation in Burma. We deploy certain principles of American economics and also shareable community principles as well.
It's good to know that. Well,
so, I guess maybe maybe I'm jumping the gun if I were to show you the presentation or even the maps. I don't know.
oh yeah, that will be good.
You want to see?
Oh,
List the maps? If you don't want to, it's fine.
oh yeah, you can send me to or email.
Yeah, I can email it to you. Yeah. I don't have, my internet is not working here, so I don't know if you have Wi-Fi here.
Oh, we have Wi-Fi. The password is very, very long.